If I said that The Amazing Digital Circus was the defining cartoon of the 2020s, I think most people would agree with me, because I'm right. I mean, come on, bro, this shit single-handedly turned Glitch Productions into an empire. It's been keeping content farms in business for years, and even months after its big finale, the fandom's still getting videos like these up to 60 million views, which is why it came as such a shock to people that despite the generational run, when the finale dropped a few months ago, reactions were, shit, I feel like saying mixed is too nice. It was war in the streets, bro. The discourse this finale created was insane. But now that we're a few months removed from the nuclear fandom blast, I wanted to see if it was really worth the fights people would get into over not giving it a 10 out of 10. Cause I'ma be honest, the first time I saw this movie, I did not like it. But now that I've watched it again to make this video, I mean, I still don't like it, but the reason why is a bit more complex. And don't get me wrong when I say that. There are things to like about this finale. And if you're one of those people who think it's the best movie of all time, shit, bro, I'm glad you found joy where I didn't. But I think the big issue I had with this finale comes down to wasted potential, and you can see examples of this from the second episode 9 starts. Episode 9 of The Amazing Digital Circus starts right where episode 8 left off, with the cast all being in shock over Caine actually being dead, which on its own is a crazy thing to start with. That guy was the primary antagonist of the show up till now, he was the thumbnail for episode 1, and now that he's gone, the world is literally falling apart around them. The group dynamic is changed forever, and here comes King walking in, undercutting all that tension, going, brain scans! Guys, I figured it out, we're brain scans, none of us are real! And this is exactly the type shit I'm talking about, cause in theory, this should be incredible. It's a direct confirmation of one of the fandom's biggest theories, Soma theory. And Soma is one of my favorite games to watch video essays about and pretend like I've actually played. I should be hype about this, but the way they did it was just kinda anticlimactic. They'd been setting this up heavy for a while, with shit like the tail bit from episode 5, the end of episode 7, Caine calling Ragatha a new mind at the start of episode 8. Hell, when Kinger was lore dumping about Scratch and Caine, he literally looked at the camera and went, Scratch was working with AI and trying to preserve his brain. What could this possibly mean? So while having it officially be confirmed was nice, having one of Kinger's 3 lines in the whole episode be him going, urethra guys, we're brain scans, like immediately, as soon as the drama about Caine fucking dying is getting good, it feels like just plot merchant Kinger looking directly in the camera and going, all your theories are right by the way, so they can yada yada their way through it to get to the real shit. Which is a shame, cause I liked the cast being all hopeless and upset after these big reveals. I wish they had more time with it. Zubul literally shuts down, Kinger says whatever Gooseworks needs him to make the plot go forward, and Jax immediately starts throwing around as much personal information as he can to be an asshole. Oh, I don't know, Jax, maybe if we work together we can fix this. Your mom doesn't love you! This shit rules. Seeing all the characters we've grown to love break down and fight each other over the circumstances was one of the things I was most excited to see in this finale, which is why it's such a bummer to me that this is kinda it for our current cast beefing in the episode. Like, damn, I wanted y'all to fight more. Thankfully though, you know what series does let me see my favorite little guys fighting? Jojo! That's right, baby. This video's sponsored by JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Spirit, the first and technically best JoJo mobile game that just opened pre-registration for iOS and Android. Now, anybody that knows me knows that I am a huge JoJo fan. Like, I've been posting crazy JoJo takes since I had literally 0 subscribers. So trust me when I say this game is the full package. You could build a dream team of your favorite characters in parts 1 through 6 and have them beat the hell out of each other. You can experience dynamic stand battles in multiple game modes, and yes, before you ask, they did include the iconic Part 5 piss scene. They also faithfully adapted a ton of other iconic moments from across JoJo's history, but you know, that one was my favorite. It all coalesces into one of the craziest, most JoJo mobile games possible, with a surprising amount of depth. And to celebrate the game's worldwide launch, they're coming together with a ton of rewards that can only be unlocked through the whole community coming together. There's a ton of cool stuff you could get right now, especially this SSR Jotaro Kujo, who gets a special shout out because that's my hat twin. So if this game seems cool to you, or you're just like a JoJo fan and you want JoJo on your phone, check out JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Spirit using my link in the description / pin comment. But now back to the video, because immediately after that great argument bit, they transitioned into one of the most useless scenes of all time, about as smoothly as I transitioned out of that ad. After the whole cast splits up, Pomni has her big Minecraft story mode moment of choosing whether or not she's gonna follow Jax or Kinger. And she actually chooses Kinger for once, which seems great because because if she didn't, that man would have one line in the entire finale, but in reality, oh my fucking god, bro. This might be my least favorite scene in the show. I know people hate the Jack stuff later on, I know people hate the ending, but I don't think enough people are talking about how foul this scene is purely off the wasted potential. Cause in a vacuum, this scene should be great. Pomni and Kinger are two of my favorite characters in the show, and them rebuilding the circus with their own powers is such a cool way to go after Caine dies. But when you put it in the context of the episode as a whole, this scene is the last time Pomni feels like the main character, Kinger feels relevant at all, and everything they're doing to teach the cast how to rebuild the circus doesn't end up mattering at all in the end. Literally, the only reason this scene is relevant at all is because it's a group activity that Jax can walk up to, almost join, and then say never mind and run away from, which then Pomni doesn't check up on him about, and Blackbeard One Piece claims another victim, bro. The off-screen hockey got another one. Now, from what I could tell, this is most people's least favorite part of the movie. Jax fans are mad that their favorite little guy just got boomed, other people are mad that it happened off screen, but at least in theory, I actually really like this. It feels like the perfect way for Jax in particular to go out. His entire character was based on how he never connected with anybody, and as a result, nobody was there for him to see him abstract. That part is great. The problem is that Jax abstracting this way makes Pomni into the most bullshit nothing character ever made, and it drives me insane. Especially because I first saw this shit as a movie and it somehow made the whole thing infinitely worse. Now, don't get me wrong when I say this. Business-wise, in terms of the doors it's opened, the Digital Circus movie was an absolute success. It's the first indie animation to get a Netflix deal. It made over $40 million at the box office. It did everything it had to do in order to get indie animation taken more seriously by the mainstream, and I respect that. But holy fuck, bro, it was the worst thing they could have done for the show itself. Cause I think on their own, episode 8 was great and episode 9 was mid, but when you put them together and air them as a feature film, it actually makes me hate both of them even more, cause some of the shit these characters do start making zero sense. In a way that would have been less obvious if it'd been 3 months between me watching episode 8 and 9, but is super obvious when I see them back to back. I think Kinger and Caine get it pretty bad with this, but the worst victim by far is Pomni. She spends the entirety of episode 8 on Jack's watch making sure he doesn't abstract, but by episode 9, they have him reach out, say never mind, and Pomni just lets him go? 15 minutes ago in this same damn theater, Jax tried to leave a room and she went, be here later. And now it cuts to Pomni going, fuck, bro, I knew I was forgetting something. I thought I left my clothes in the dryer. Turns out I forgot to tell my friend not to kill himself. Ah, my bad. I'm such a chud. What? It's so jarring to see, and I feel like it signals the end of Pomni being the main character of Digital Circus and the start of her being the camera we used to watch the Jax show, and that really sucks. Ever since episode 6, it feels like more and more of her character has revolved around Jax, which I know has caused a lot of discourse with some people liking it and some not, but either way, the fact they made looking after Jax such a big part of her character and then didn't even let her try to get through to him is insane. Like, y'all won't let her have shit. They could have at least had her attempt it and fail. Like, imagine how hard it would go if she tried to reach out, got smacked away by Jax, and then the guilt of that is what made him run off and abstract off screen. That shit would have given Pomni at least something proactive to do. It would have slotted in perfectly with Kinger's speech about her being strong and emotionally mature, and it might have given Jax's episode-spanning tragic backstory a bit more weight, because as it is now, that shit did not hit for me as hard as Gooseworks clearly wanted it to. There was a way this could have worked, but instead, after 30 straight minutes of setting up her being on Jax duty, she just forgot, and we have to move on to the rest of the circus giving their live brain scan reactions to his death. And despite all the shit I've been talking so far, these two scenes do actually hit. I like one of them a bit more ironically than the other one, but they're both genuinely great. The Gangle Zubul one's probably my favorite, because it revolves around Gangle being the one person not bawling their eyes out about the abstraction. Which, like, yeah, that guy was a dickhead. It makes sense not everybody's hitting the Sans Undertale right away. And like, based on the things we've seen Jax do to Gangle, and the things we're gonna see in the Mind Palace in a second, I'd say this is a valid reaction from Gangle. The Ragatha Pomni scene was great too, but it unintentionally ended up way funnier to me, because even though it was supposed to be their big emotional reconnection scene, scene, they haven't actually spoken to each other since like episode 5, and it makes the moment feel more awkward than sweet. Like, Ragatha's out here heartbroken, trauma dumping about how Jax would strike the names of his victims from history and fucking dipped her in tar and shit. And the best response Pomni can muster is going, you know, by process of elimination, you're technically my best friend here. And then they just stare at each other longingly while walking away. And this shit genuinely fried me the first time I saw it. It's probably the funniest scene in the movie to me, because it feels to me like the writers wanted to show that they were close, but they already ran out of shit to say to each other. So they were just like, fuck, have them stare at each other a lot. And they just have it go on for so long. It goes from sweet to uncomfortable to so uncomfortable it's really funny. And they're still doing it right now. The scene is still going. But after this emotional goodbye, we get to the part that Gooseworks was clearly the most excited to write, which is... Hey, so did y'all know that Gooseworks really likes Neon Genesis Evangelion? Like, really likes Evangelion? Now, for those of you who don't know, because that shit came out in 1995, Neon Genesis Evangelion is one of the most influential anime of all time. It was famous for being this mecha anime that used its dope-ass angel battles to dive deep into its characters' trauma, covering shit like disassociation, PTSD, depression, being bisexual. But it was even more infamous for running out of money, with the last 3 episodes being some of the most interesting and controversial in anime history, because the show didn't have a budget for any big final mecha battles. So instead, they used the $50 and a lighter they had left in their budget to give its characters therapy sessions to end their character arcs. And I feel like with this last episode of Digital Circus, especially with this 30-minute long Jax backstory bit, Gooseworks is really trying to have her last 3 episodes of Evangelion moment. Like, look at this poster. I wonder what could have possibly inspired her. And to her credit, she did nail the controversy part. Y'all have seen the shit this fandom has done to itself over this episode. But I think the reason why the Evangelion ending worked and the Digital Circus one didn't was because the Digital Circus one was all about Jax. This shit feels like if the last episode of Evangelion was still the Shinji therapy session, but the first 24 episodes were about fucking Masato. It doesn't really hit the same because it's not about the actual main character. You can argue whether or not Jax is a main character all you want. Lord knows the fandom has been for years, but there's no arguing that our POV character up till this point is and always has been Pomni, and shifting that 15 minutes into your series finale is genuinely crazy, and it makes the whole segment feel super jarring. However, despite the problems I have with this scene even existing at all, I love Evangelion. And once Pomni gets sucked into Jax's super sad tragic backstory dimension, a lot of the scenes are pretty good. Like, you could tell that this was the bit that Gooseworks put the most time and effort into, because the second we get to those 3 doors that show how Jax sees himself in the other brain scan homunculi, 2 of those 3 scenes are genuinely incredible. I think the Looney Tunes bit with Zubul is one of the best scenes in the show, period. And while the scene of him choking out Pomni is definitely uncomfortable, this one is actually meant to be. We see different versions of this scene by the door later on with both Ragatha and Kaufmo going, I could fix him. So it makes sense that that's how Jax sees Pomni as well. It's probably the best Evangelion reference the show ever does, too, being a shot-for-shot remake of the end of Evangelion scene where Shinji chokes out Asuka. I got no problems with these scenes, but the fact that they were this well written makes the Gangle scene stuck between them that much more of a jump scare, cause oh my god, this is so ass. Bro, if this scene was an Evangelion reference, it'd be to that time Shinji beat off to his friend in the hospital. When the finale first came out, this scene might have been the one that caused the most actual fights, and it's because no one could agree on what the scene is supposed to mean. I've seen people defending the writing, saying it's supposed to be uncomfortable. I've seen people defending Jax, saying it's meant to be their intrusive thoughts. I've seen people unironically say Jax did nothing wrong because it was hot. It's insane. And as much as it made me uncomfortable, I think the scene was meant to be option 3. Like, bro, listen to my theater's reaction to it. This is a fan service scene. It's a fucked up fan service scene because it's Jax fantasizing about Zubul fucking dying so they can harass Gangle in peace, but it still exists to be a fan service scene. And it's not like that's something Glitch is above doing either. Like, as much as Maid Jax adds a very important Astolfo cosplayer who'd say the N-word online vibe to their characterization, Glitch has been using them as a mascot to sell merch for a while now. Hell, they posted Jax Mpreg to YouTube shorts like 2 days before the movie dropped to promote it. I do not trust that they made this shit uncomfortable on purpose. I think it's just bad. At least Pomni kills them when she enters Jax's Council of Mabel's head-ass mind palace. This scene is fine. We get to see Jax's 3 personality traits, funny, beats women, and the LGBT board on on 4chan interacting with each other, and it lets Michael Kovac do what he does best and drop one more slur for the road. Les Pomni, who at this point feels more like the YN of a fanfiction than the main character of a show, essentially write herself out of this segment by going, "Stop, Datebayo! This isn't the real you, Jax, believe it!" And after she said this, somewhere in the world a monkey's paw must have curled a finger, cause we see the real Jax alright, but in a way that officially makes him the POV character of the show. Pomni still does not get shit. And when I say POV character, I fucking mean it. This entire segment is in full first person. I don't know what the public opinion about this scene is, but to me, this is one of the best examples of a really cool idea that the finale just fumbles. Cause it's a really interesting way to see Jax's backstory, and for at least like 30 seconds, it looks cool. But when it goes on for like 20 minutes straight, it's hard to take seriously. Like, I'm watching vignettes of a divorce in real time. Why does this shit look like Sonic Dreams Collection? Like, damn, the flashback to the adventure where he had to hang out with Sonic and take off his shoes was kinda weird. I wonder why Caine made them do that. But we see all of Jax's backstory through this ugly ass POV, and I mean all of it. From the second he joins the circus, to him getting to know and hanging out with Kaufmo and especially Ribbit, to them eventually opening up to each other, to Jax revealing his tragic backstory, to him instantly regretting it, and then systematically bullying and isolating both Ribbit and Kaufmo to suicide. Full marriage story shit. It's genuinely uncomfortable to watch, and not only because we're watching someone fumble Ribbit and Pomni back to back. And honestly, I'm of two minds about this segment, cause holy fuck is it effective at making me hate Jax's guts. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I walked into this episode as a Jax centrist and left as a radical hater. Rest in piss, you purple fuck, you look like Jeff the Killer. This whole bit recontextualizes his behavior throughout the show and makes it so much worse. Like, I knew Ribbit was fucked from the beginning cause she's built like a dead wife flashback, but comparing the way he treated her to the way he treated characters like Gangle, Pomni, and Ragatha throughout the show is wild. Hell, I'm convinced the reason Ragatha hasn't gotten as much screen time is because she was right about him in episodes 5 and 6. Cause if I watch somebody bully and isolate two of their friends until they died, I'd try and stop new people from being friends with them too. Like, what the fuck? However, the problem with all this is that even though the show makes Jax so insanely hateable, it feels like at the same time they really want to explain away all his actions and forgive them. Like, Jax's backstory with his mom is really compelling, and it explains why he's refused to connect with people really well. But when that leads into ... and that's why I hate women, and Pomni has zero qualms with it, it just feels like
I was raised in a broken and abusive household.
This chicken is cold!
When I turned 17, I ran away to Hong Kong, where I met Triad boss Kenny Wu, my first love.
Bitch, this chicken is cold!
And I'm just not buying it. Like, I understand the character, I get what brought them here, I just don't think that absolves them in the way the show clearly wants me to. Everything being extra complicated though, by this being the scene where Jax is revealed to have been trans the whole time and just never came out. Which in a similar way that the rest of the abuse in this segment recontextualizes just how much of a dickhead she's been throughout the show, this is meant to recontextualize why she's been such a dickhead throughout the show, and honestly, it does work. This is clearly the part of the show Gooseworks wanted to write the most. Like, even going back to old episodes, Jax's character arc has been the thing with the most care and effort put into it throughout the show. And this does make a lot of sense when you see Gooseworks saying shit like Jax is based on the worst parts of herself. It's an incredibly personal bit of storytelling that I do think is really well done. Now, was it worth sacrificing the rest of the characters and story for it? Absolutely not. Like, I'm sorry, bro, as much as the reveal of Jax being trans makes her a better character, spending 30 minutes of your finale giving one person a satisfying conclusion while completely sacrificing the rest of your cast is insane. It doesn't help that the show clearly wants you to feel bad for Jax and forgive her while also not doing anything to actually redeem her other than have her die, which, like, I am glad she got some sort of comeuppance by abstracting and not coming back. Like, I just spent the last 30 minutes of my life watching this lady bully two people to death and fantasize about telling the woman she's been harassing, yo, I hear you fuck with they them bitches, if I beat that pussy up, is you gonna tell on me? I'm sorry, it's time for you to die now. But that just makes it so much more jarring to me seeing Pomni and the show by extension go full Steven Universe on her as she's going into the light, which after the shit we just saw feels like her getting off way too easy. And the fact is followed up by, no joke, a Funny Bunny fan cam to Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder just adds to that vibe. Having this song in the finale might be the most insane thing Digital Circus ever did. I get why they put it there, you know, Isn't she lovely because Jax is a woman, and I even think it might have actually worked if they just used the original song. But taking one of the most famous songs about black joy and attributing it to abuser Jax, voiced by Michael Kovac, and having it covered by this dude Jobby, who just so happens to be Shadman's #1 reply guy, is truly a deranged choice. They got your mans, bruh, on a sex assault charge. He's drawing children. You put them in a jar. Bitch, you are weird. Fuck out my face. You're not seeing heaven's gate. How the fuck did you get a job? All that put together, when your fandom already has racism allegations, was just too much for me. It tarnished what should have been the emotional climax of the movie. But that's the note that Jax, the final antagonist of the show, goes out on. The rest of the cast saved Pomni from the mine dungeon, and now that the abstraction's been calmed, the people of the Digital Circus start rebuilding their home, just this time in their image instead of Caine's. And in the process, they truly find peace in a stagnant life. It'd be an ending with some flaws, sure, but it'd at least be satisfying, you know, themes and such. Is what I would say if right after they started building, it didn't pan over to show that Caine was there and fine the entire time. Now look, don't get it twisted. Caine is probably my favorite character in the show. He might be one of the only ones with a real ass completed character arc. But like, why is he back? How is he back? Why was this segment 10 minutes long? Literally none of this is explained like ever. We just flash cut to the WD Gaster dimension and Caine is talking to the fuck ass orb from the start of episode 8 before running through the void till he finds LTE Wi-Fi in the brain scan folder. And at first, I thought this scene was actually genius. Caine's whole character has revolved around him wanting to understand humans, to be human. Full like Am Pinocchio type shit. So I assumed he was breaking through all those barriers to put himself in the folder, to finally be as human as the rest of the cast. But nah, it was actually just a flashback of him throwing everyone in the circus, and the real way he comes back is by hollow purpling his evil orb into the void, which somehow lets him fly back to the circus with all his powers. This shit makes no sense and it sucks, but it's another perfect example of something I probably wouldn't hate as much if it wasn't for the movie. This shit probably would have hit way harder if Caine had been dead for 3 months before coming back, but I saw it in theaters. So for me, Caine died like 40 minutes ago, and it just made the moment super flaccid. What really killed the momentum of the show for me though is what Caine did when he came back. Cause he apologized for torturing them, which was good. They don't instantly forgive him, which is at least a step forward, and then he immediately gives them all admin powers and you lose me. Cause this shit completely invalidates Kinger's whole existence. Like, what does that man even do? Seriously, like, this fandom is clowned on Ragatha for being forgotten by the narrative, but y'all gotta hop off my girl and start looking at fucking Potential Man over here. Cause I've never seen a man with more wasted shit in my life. He was a huge part of CNA, he's the oldest member of the circus whose wife abstracted in front of him, he built Caine, and somehow the most relevant thing he does in this episode is go brain scan. Remember that scene of him teaching Pomni how to use her imagination to build the circus? Yeah, it turns out that shit doesn't matter at all because Caine Christ is back from the dead and just gave him all admin powers. Not even him deleting Caine ended up mattering because he just came back. Any Kinger scene in the entire show literally only exists to lore dump. His wife died in the dark episode 3, that's just lore for how abstractions work. End of episode 7, he goes scratch the first abstraction, and it goes literally nowhere. CNA episode 8, he lore dumps about Caine, tries to delete him, it doesn't even stick. And by the time we get to episode 9, it's their literal last chance to have Kinger do anything of value. Only for both the things in his big scene, him gassing up Pomni and him teaching her how to build the circus with their own powers, don't end up mattering at all in the end. Caine just comes back with a PowerPoint presentation and it all gets invalidated instantly. They really turned my goat into the amazing digital nothing burger, and I'm mad as hell about it. Like, what do you mean he doesn't even have a scene with his own creation? He deleted his chud son Caine and none of them talk about it at all. And this is definitely a hot take, but I didn't even need the 5-minute PowerPoint presentation showing what the characters are up to IRL. I would have been cool with just the flashes we saw from Caine hacking the brain scan base like 2 scenes ago. I'm not mad that we got it, I just feel like the 5 minutes we spent on it could have been used to flesh out the people in the circus instead of what they were doing outside of it. But I still think the scene is pretty good. It let Pomni say the corniest line I've ever heard and go, Abby's out there having fun, but in here, I'm just Pomni. That shit made me laugh laughed so fucking hard when I first heard it, bro. This scene is great. But from here, the show ends exactly how it started, with everyone eating digital food at the digital table. And despite the 25 minutes of straight doo-doo I've been slinging about this finale so far, I love this last shot. Goose has always said that the theme of this show is meant to be finding peace in a stagnant life. And this last shot shows that so well, I genuinely can't imagine the show ending any differently.
Congratulations, all of my friends.
If I had to describe the Digital Circus finale in one word, it would be disappointing. But in the same way I said I can't imagine a world where the show doesn't end on this one shot, I can't imagine a world where this show's ending isn't disappointing. I think it was doomed to fail from the beginning. Like, bro, this show has become one of the biggest things on the planet. Even months after its release, people are getting 60 million view videos off of it. And when you're a solo writer and your personal project accidentally becomes like the defining cartoon of the 2020s, yeah, there's like no way you can end something like that with no problems. It's just too big. Hell, you could see how this big ass scale affected the show by just looking at the cliffhangers for each episode. Episode 6 ended with the cliffhanger of Abel showing up, and then episode 7 ended with the cliffhanger of all the lore being fake, and then episode 8 ended with the cliffhanger of Caine dying. And as these cliffhangers kept getting bigger, more and more of the big questions of the show weren't getting answered, and the cast had less and less to do. So by the time we got to the finale, there was no physical way to fit everything that needed to be resolved into an hour-long episode, let alone a combo meal-ass movie. At the end of the day, though, I do still think The Amazing Digital Circus is a show worth watching, even if the ending was disappointing. But despite ending with a bit of a whimper, the show did leave us with one final gift, and it's that this fanbase is gonna be around forever. We're gonna have to deal with shit like this forever now, bro. It's so over.